On April 1st, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student walked into a crowded bar. Security cameras captured him clearly as he stepped inside. Friends were with him, music was playing, the bar was packed with people enjoying the night. But what happened next would become one of the strangest disappearance cases ever recorded, because while cameras showed him entering the building, they never showed him leaving. And to this day, no one can explain how that's possible. That night, Brian Shaffer had gone out with his friend Clint Florence in Columbus, Ohio. Brian was a second-year medical student with a promising future ahead of him. Friends described him as funny, intelligent, and someone who could talk to anyone in the room. But life hadn't been easy recently. Just weeks earlier, Brian's mother had passed away after a battle with cancer. The loss had deeply affected him, and those close to him said he had been struggling with grief. Still, that night was supposed to be a break from everything. Brian and Clint had plans to leave for a spring break trip to Miami in just a couple of days. Before the trip, they decided to go out and celebrate. After visiting a few different bars, the two eventually ended up at a popular spot near Ohio State University called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Around 1:15 in the morning, security cameras captured Brian walking up the escalator and entering the bar with Clint. Everything seemed completely normal. Brian talked with friends, laughed, and even spent time chatting with two women near the entrance of the bar shortly before closing time. Nothing about his behavior seemed unusual, but sometime between 1:30 and 2 a.m., something changed. When the bar started closing and people began leaving, Clint realized he couldn't find Brian. Anywhere inside, he tried calling him, no answer. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe Brian had left with someone else, or maybe he had stepped outside for a moment. But the next morning, Brian never returned home. He missed his scheduled flight to Miami. His phone went straight to voicemail, and no one had heard from him since that night. That's when police began investigating. Detectives quickly reviewed the security footage from the bar and nearby streets. The footage clearly showed Brian entering the building. But despite hours of reviewing recordings, investigators could not find a single clip showing him leaving. Dozens of other people were seen exiting the bar that night, but Brian was never among them. It was as if he had simply disappeared inside the building. Investigators searched everywhere. They looked inside dumpsters, nearby alleyways, construction areas, rooftops, and even sewer systems. They questioned employees and customers who had been at the bar that night. Still, there were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses who saw anything suspicious, and no evidence explaining what happened. Over the years, several theories have tried to explain the mystery. One possibility is that Brian slipped out through a back exit that wasn't clearly visible on camera. At the time, there was construction happening near the bar, which could have created blind spots in the surveillance footage. But investigators believe they reviewed every possible exit, and still no footage ever showed Brian leaving the building. Another theory suggests foul play. Some believe something may have happened inside the bar and that Brian's body was somehow removed without being noticed. But with so many people around, that scenario would have been extremely difficult. Then there's the theory that Brian chose to disappear intentionally. Some point to the stress he was under after losing his mother, suggesting he may have wanted to escape his life and start over somewhere else. But that theory also raises questions. Brian left behind his phone, his car, his career, and everyone who cared about him. There were no withdrawals from his bank account, no confirmed sightings, and no evidence that he planned to disappear. Months after Brian vanished, something strange happened. His phone briefly sent out a signal, but investigators were never able to pinpoint exactly where it came from. After that moment, the phone went silent again. Years later, Brian's father passed away without ever knowing what happened to his son. The case remains unsolved to this day. No body has ever been found. No credible sightings have ever been confirmed. And the security footage from that night still raises the same haunting question. How can someone walk into a crowded bar with cameras everywhere and simply vanish without a trace? So what do you think really happened to Brian Shaffer? Did he somehow slip past the cameras? Did something happen inside the bar that no one ever discovered? Or is there another explanation that investigators still haven't uncovered? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy unsolved mystery stories like this one, subscribe for more disappearances and unexplained cases every week.